Today we will be deriving special trig limits. This is part 2. My name is Christian, and let's get started. So today's limit is the limit as x approaches 0 of 1 minus cosine of x over x. So the first thing we'd want to do is multiply the numerator and denominator by the conjugate of the numerator, which is 1 plus cosine of x times 1 plus cosine of x. Okay, this is our first step. Our second step is to just simplify this. So with the numerator here, we can just use the difference of two squares, right? Our a squared minus b squared equals to a plus b times a minus b. So using that, we'll get 1 minus cosine squared of x over x times 1 plus cosine of x. The limit as x approaches 0 of 1 minus cosine squared of x over x times 1 plus cosine of x. So the third thing we can do here is we can simplify this using our Pythagorean, one of our three Pythagorean identities, which I proved all three in the last video, which is that sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x equals 1. So using this, we can get, if we subtract cosine squared of x on both sides, we'll get sine squared of x equals to 1 minus cosine squared of x. So with this being said here, we can substitute this for sine squared of x. So then we'll get the third step, which is just the limit as x approaches 0 of sine squared of x over x times 1 plus cosine of x. So in the fourth step here is use our properties of limits, and we can split this up into the limit as x approaches 0 of sine of x over x times the limit as x approaches 0 of sine of x divided by 1 plus cosine of x. So the reason why I did this here is because we can apply the special trig limit, which we had derived in part 1, which is the limit as x approaches 0 of sine of x over x. And the limit as x approaches 0 of sine of x over x, of course, we derived, or we evaluated this limit, and it equaled 1. So then with this limit right here, we can just do direct substitution. We can substitute 0, so we'll get sine of 0 over 1 plus cosine of 0, which will then equal to 0 over 1 plus 1, which will then just equal 0. So then we'll get 5, which is, we'll just get 1 times 0, and then 6, we can say therefore the limit as x approaches 0 of 1 minus cosine of x over x equals 0. Now if you're wondering about this, the other special, there's actually a third special trig limit. There's actually a third special trig limit, but it's actually, the reason why I'm not actually going to do a whole separate video on that is because if you think about it here, the third special trig limit, by the way, is the limit as x approaches 0 of cosine of x minus 1 over x. So the reason why I'm not making a whole separate video on this is because we can just rewrite it as the limit as x approaches 0 of negative of 1 minus cosine of x over x, and then using our properties of limits, we can take this negative 1 out here and rewrite as negative 1 times the limit as x approaches 0 of 1 minus cosine of x over x, and we just saw that this would equal 0, so this would just be negative 1 times 0, which would then equal 0. So that's why I'm not making a whole separate video on it, because it's just soup that if you know this limit, if you know the limit we covered in part 1, you can do the two other limits that I'm covering here. So hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.